Welcome to the Backfield Buzz podcast, a part of the Hive Podcast Network. As always, I'm Cody Wiles here, joined by Logan Glover and Andrew Foster, and we're going to be keeping you in the know with the National Football League. If you want to stay in the know, consider subscribing. We'll be here throughout the whole entire NFL season. We'll even be doing a little fantasy stuff coming up. But what we got going on today, guys, is the AFC North division preview. We've been trucking through these. If you want to take a look at the NFC, we've completed the whole NFC. Go take a look at that. But before we get into this AFC North division, how are you guys doing, Glover? I see you've come prepared for
Yeah.
this discussion. If the people couldn't tell
Yeah.
what team you cheer for.
I'm a little excited, if I'm not sure if you can tell or anything, but no, I'm looking forward to this, I'm ready. I'm ready to defend my Ravens against anything you say, anything you throw at me. I'm ready. I'm excited. I'm looking forward to the AFC North, man. This is a good division. As much as it sucks, I hate it, but it's a good division.
And Frosty, how you doing?
I forgot what division we were doing today. I came on, saw Logan in his Ravens jersey, and I was wearing a purple shirt, so I had to go change. I can't I can't be wearing a purple shirt when we're talking about the Ravens with this guy. So, other than that, we're having a good day.
All right. Well, we'll hold off on the Ravens for now. We'll save them to the end just so Glover has
That's
to
for
wait through
last.
this whole time.
That's for last.
Let's start with the worst team, the Cincinnati Bengals. At least from last year, they were the worst team, 9-8, finishing fourth in the AFC North. Where are we at with these Bengals guys? Because it's you could look at it on one hand where they're a Joe Burrow injury away from making a real run. Um, so it seems an interesting spot. Frosty, we'll start with you. What do you make of these Cincinnati Bengals?
You kind of said it there. Like realistically, they are a Joe Burrow away from making a run. We've already seen them get there once. So like it's we know there's one quarterback that we know in the league right now can go toe to toe with Patrick Mahomes, and it's Joe Burrow. He's the only one that has actually shown that he can defeat Joe Burrow, or excuse me, Patrick Mahomes in the playoffs. What I'm worried about with this team is the run game. Zach Moss, I'm not the biggest fan of. I actually think Chase Brown should be the running back one going into this season. I like him a lot. I liked him in the draft last year. Their O-line still scares me a little bit, but they've shored up some things. There's the receiving core is still incredible. We'll see what happens with T. Higgins, but Jamar Chase and T. Higgins is still one of the better 1-2 punches in the NFL.
He's not the only one that's requested a trade. T. Higgins, Trey Hendrickson as well. So, Glover, why is everybody wanting out of Cincinnati?
I think money is going to be what it is. Like, I know it's going to sound shocking coming from the Ravens fan, but I think the Bengals are incredibly overrated. I think they have been for a while. They had a great run, but the contracts are starting to catch up to them. I mean, Joe Burrow just got paid bank. Jamar Chase is due for bank. T. Higgins is due for bank. They had to get rid of Joe Mixon's contract. They couldn't sign Jesse Bates. They keep losing pieces. Trey Hendrickson now wants out. Pieces just keep falling off the back of this ship, and they can't fill them. They haven't drafted particularly well besides their top tier picks. Obviously, like when they were in their rebuilding days, Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, those are home run hits. Since then, it's not been a lot. I mean, they paid Orlando Brown Jr. quite a bit of money. The O line's questionable. There was the 1-2 punch, no doubt. I think it might be the best in the league if T. Higgins is healthy, which he was on and off the field last year. But behind them, there's really not much. Mike Gesicki's an okay starting tight end, and Jermaine Burton's the receiver three. I do actually like Zach Moss. I thought he was solid in Indy, filling in for Jonathan Taylor last year. And then the defense is it's solid, but again, I think this team has a few more holes than people like to give it credit. I think Joe Burrow elevates this team quite a bit because we saw last year without Joe Burrow, his team wasn't doing a whole lot. Like it really was struggling to get off the ground because the defense can't make up for the lack of offense without Joe Burrow. So yeah, a Burrow injury, and he's been injury prone his career, it could be over.
And some people would say they like Trenton Irwin too. I've heard the Bengals fans like Irwin, but yeah, this offense is in an interesting spot because obviously when any team starting quarterback goes down, it's hard to really look at the roster, but you could look on one hand and be like they were 9-8 last year with Jake Browning in at QB for a good portion of the season. So it's going to be interesting with Joe Burrow because he's only played 2 seasons, over 10 games. So he needs to stay healthy. I think we all want to see him healthy, right? Like he's clearly one of the most talented individuals in the entire NFL. So, but is it fair to say they'll go as far as Joe Burrow takes them, or do they have enough around him that even if he is going to miss some games, or maybe he isn't even performing the best, that they can still? I mean, is there Super Bowl expectations in Cincy? Is that where we're at with this team, or is it just getting back into the playoffs first?
I think it's one step at a time, but I think you hit on the nail. It is as far as Joe Burrow will take this team. The supporting cast is not enough in a division this tough. If this team is playing in the NFC South, you can survive without Joe Burrow for a couple of games. If you lose an inch, you lose Joe Burrow for a random 3 week span where you happen to go Ravens, Browns, Steelers, you're toast. This division is going to be down to the wire, one game apart, win loss versus the division. Like this is going to be tight. You need every game you can get in this division.
Yeah, like the supporting cast proved that they can at least keep the ship afloat without Joe Burrow last year. They kept them above 500. They were 9-8. I don't know if they can do that again though. Like really, there's looking at their schedule, there's not very many times where they get 3 games in a row where they have a weak team that they're playing against. There's always, and it's because, like Logan said, it's because of their division. This is probably the most balanced division in football. All these teams are close. All these teams are good. You could easily see them all finishing above 500. It's if Joe Burrow isn't on the field, I just don't see any world where they're back in the playoffs if it's more than a 2 game absence.
I mean, they've invested heavily into this offensive line to try to keep him upright. Like I do really like this offensive line. I think it's deep as well, especially when you add in first round pick Amarius Mims, who is somebody that I really like. Even like a Cody Ford as like you could not even project him as the starter here. So I really like the group he has up front, and I like the offense as a whole. I think Chase Brown, the Canadian, is has some untapped upside, and he'll have a bigger role this season for sure. Don't mind him and Zach Moss either. Maybe maybe they're lacking in receiver talent with Tyler Boyd leaving now, but you're hoping that some young guys can step up. Let's go to the other side of the ball where uh, I mean, I don't know. This is a solid group, guys. Like this is a really solid team. Frosty, what do you think of the defense?
I I like it. I liked their defense going into last year, and they lost DJ Reader and Chidobe Awuzie. I'm not gonna say they're world beaters. They're not the easiest guys to replace on the field, but they did a good job. They got Geno Stone from Baltimore, who was I think a really, really good signing to shore up their safeties. I still think I don't think this is the defense that got them to the Super Bowl, but I think this defense it's not gonna lag them down any more than an offense would without Joe Burrow. I in no way do I think this is a bad defense at all. It's just I don't know if it's up to par with the rest of the division.
Yeah, I think this defense, like I don't want to say league average because there's plenty of mediocre defenses. It's probably like slightly above league average. Because the big thing is there's not a ton of like gaping holes. Like you don't look at a position and go, man, how are they going to stop this? But there's not really a guy, it doesn't have a guy that's elevating this defense. The only one you could say is Trey Hendrickson, and he wants out. So like their next best player is probably Logan Wilson, who's a solid linebacker, but he's not the star of your defense. He can't carry a defense on his back. I like some of the young guys have played pretty well. I like what Cam Taylor-Britt's done. I really like the Dax Hill pick. DJ Turner's been solid. So a lot of their young pieces have stepped up. Jordan Battle, another young pick at safety. I'm interested to see what Geno Stone will do in a different system though, because he had a lot of interceptions last year. He played well. He played well in replacement of Marcus Williams, but he was heavily insulated on that defense. He didn't have to do a whole lot. I think he's gonna have a lot more on his plate in this Bengals team, and he actually is gonna have more expectations because there was no expectations with him in Baltimore because he was the third stringer. Really solid. He played well in his role, but I'm interested to see what he does in a more complete role this season.
I I think they've really hit on a lot of picks for these young guys on defense, and I like the depth that they have across the board at all three levels. Like somebody like a Joseph Asai and Chris Jenkins Jr. and Miles Murphy. That's three young guys on the defensive line who, uh, like they probably not projected as starters right now, and who will rotate in and continue to get better. And for the linebackers, Akeem Davis Gaither has been probably the rotational linebacker. Like if you were to put a staple on it, he's always been since he's been in the league, provided good reps when he's gotten in. And then Logan, you were talking about some of the DBs there that are backing up in the secondary. I think the way you put it, Glover, is a good way to kind of set it up. Like there's not really a guy, but I think the unit as a whole is solid because I mean you did really lay it out really well. There is no holes and they're deep everywhere. So we'll see what this defense can do because it's going to be tested in especially in this division as well. Let's move over to the Pittsburgh Steelers real quick. Are they going above 500? What do we think? Is this the year that it finally breaks? Well, maybe we have the standings predictions coming up for anybody who doesn't know how these go. We simulated the whole season and we have some standings predictions, but I don't know. Do we want to reveal it now, or do we gotta keep the viewer retention, right?
I'll
That's
just
what we
say
gotta do.
I do this every year, but I can't stop myself. I feel like this might just be the year they finally don't go above 500, but they're probably gonna prove me wrong. They always do. I always go, you know what? There's no way this roster can do it anymore. And they do it, and it pisses me off so much as a Ravens fan. I can't stand the Steelers, and I hate playing them and losing to them. It's the worst. I can't stand it.
At some point, it's got to stop, though, right?
Yes,
Like, this
it
can't
has
just
to.
go on forever. Mike Tomlin cannot go his entire career and never go under 500. Like, there's no way that this happened. Now, I have them very close to 500. I won't say which side of 500 I have them on, but I think no matter what, this team will hover around there.
Probably.
This team did get better though, and the graphics up now. Lots of movement for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Glover, we got to start with the quarterbacks, right? So it looks like Russell Wilson's going to be the starter heading into camp, and they got Justin Fields. I've seen clips of him at running back, returning kicks. What do you think Russ is an upgrade over Pickett? How much of an upgrade, if you do think so? And I mean, what are they going to do with Justin Fields?
It's like Russ can be an upgrade over Pickett. It's more will Russ be an upgrade over Pickett. If we're getting Broncos Russ, it's not that much of an upgrade. Like at that point, I'd probably rather Fields, see what you got there. But I don't see either of these guys being able to fully tap into their potential with Arthur Smith manning the offense. I do not understand that hire. He was the one problem Atlanta had for years was he misutilized their stars. He couldn't get the best out of his players on offense. The offense sucked. The offense sucked. The offense sucked. And now he's your OC. You just got away from Matt Canada. Now you're gonna hire Arthur Smith. What did your fans do to deserve that? So I don't know if I trust either of their quarterbacks to really elevate this offense because the defense will be fine. The defense is always fine, but this offense, it's rough. It is not great, especially if Russ isn't elevating them.
Yeah, I think Russell Wilson's a little bit disrespected. I'm last season in 15 games, he had one less touchdown than Patrick Mahomes and six less interceptions. I think he had a very underrated season last year. But that being said, I don't think that like clearly this is not Seattle Russell Wilson. Russell Wilson is not going to be the main guy that's going to march the ball down the field for you. I think this team is going to have to rely a lot on the run game with Najee Harris and Jalen Warren. And I think Jalen Warren should be the one. I think Najee Harris, he's lost a ton of explosiveness, but he's still a really, really effective back if he's used properly. He has to be that third down, the short yardage guy that's just going to kind of bulldoze his way through people and get you the 2.5 yards a carry that you need to get first downs and make sure the chains keep on moving. This team's going to have to just small ball their way to wins over the course of the season.
Oh yeah, they're gonna live and die by the run game and hoping their defense can stand up and make some plays. Like that's what it's gonna be.
I mean, they've clearly identified that it's a weakness because they used their top four draft picks, or they used a pick in every round. First, second, third, fourth round, we're all on offense. Two on the offensive line, and then three on the offensive line, excuse me, and a receiver in Roman Wilson, who I think can is going to have a good year, guys. I'm planting my flag a little bit in the Roman Wilson camp. I think there's going to be lots of opportunity for him because this receiver core. I mean, they're looking for a number two guy right now, right? Like you're thinking it's going to be one of Van Jefferson, Roman Wilson, Calvin Austin the third, Quez Watkins, Scotty Miller. They have a whole bunch of these kind of 3, 4 guys you would probably gadget guys you would put. Are you counting Cordell Patterson as a wide receiver? What are we? He's another like weapon at
At this
some
point, I'm
point.
counting Justin Fields as a wide receiver.
You never know with the way this team has been so far.
So I think the offense could come to if it breaks right, I feel like the receivers can be productive. Uh of course you got Pat Fryermuth there as well, who's gonna soak up some targets. It's gonna be interesting though. That's something to keep an eye on because the O line, they've invested in it. I think it's still a work in progress, but it's young and has potential to continue to get better. We'll see if they're gonna start Fatanu, their first round pick at tackle. I would assume so. Um, and they got Broderick Jones on the other side, who I think had a good year. I'm not sure how other people feel, but I think he's a good building block. So we'll see. It's a young offense to some degree, so they need people to take steps on that end for sure, right?
Yeah. All over.
Yeah. The good thing for that offensive line is there's two rookies that are projected to be starting on it, first of all, which
Three.
could be good or bad. There's three. Oh yeah,
Oh
there's
wait,
three
sorry, two
rookies.
rookies and a sophomore. My
Or
bad.
yeah, sorry. Yeah, the two rookies and then Broderick Jones too. The good thing for them is Russell Wilson might be the best improvising quarterback in football. He makes plays out of nothing and can just keep himself on his feet like crazy. And Justin Fields, even if Wilson has another bad year like he did a couple years ago, Justin Fields is an athletic guy. He can run too. The offensive line, they'll have their time to be able to get themselves up to speed because of how athletic their two quarterbacks are.
Yeah, and Justin Fields is no stranger to playing in front of a back line. He's seen it all. There's no way it can be worse for him. He can only go up for Justin Fields.
Yeah, I don't mind Isaac Seumalo and James Daniels at guard as well. Let's go to the defense because this is the strength of the team. Uh, Obviously, I want to start with Patrick Queen because we do have Logan Glover here. Just talk a little about Patrick Queen because he's coming in and they're going to be asking a lot out of him. They need him to be as good as he was in Baltimore. Do you think this is something that Queen can do on his own, or like you were kind of talking about Geno Stone and the Bengals? Do you think it was more of a product of the system?
I think again, it's going to be a very similar conversation with Patrick Queen because he was really good his rookie year in Baltimore. Then he had a couple of years where he was solid, but he wasn't like world beating. He wasn't the guy he was expected to be. Then Roquan Smith got there, and all of a sudden it just clicked for Patrick Queen. I think he can't be. I don't know if he can be the lead linebacker. That's he's an amazing second linebacker. If he's playing beside someone with the mental fortitude of a Roquan Smith, a Fred Warner, the mental fortitude of one of those elite linebackers in the NFL, he is an amazing secondary punch there. But on his own, I don't know if he's got the ability to process defenses the way and process coverages the way that these elite linebackers do. He's great at just running around, hitting people, making plays on the football, and just following the ball around the field. But when he's asked to process the field and process the system, process the offense, that's where things start to lack for him. He starts to make some mishaps. So I'm curious to see what he can do when he's the lead linebacker. Maybe he picked up a couple things during his time with Roquan Smith. Maybe it wasn't that he was playing better as a secondary linebacker and he was just picking up off of what Roquan Smith was teaching him. So I'm really interested, but this is a boomer bust kind of signing for the Steelers. Who knows what he can do on his own.
Yeah, I think they needed somebody like that because TJ Watt is such a pass rush dominant linebacker. They did need a guy that was going to be able to stand in coverage a little bit more because that's kind of TJ Watt's one real weakness. But realistically, he's only like Patrick Queen's only going to have to process the defense for about 3 seconds before TJ Watt and Cameron Hayward are mauling the quarterback that they're rushing. So I think he'll be okay, but I do think you're right, Logan. I think him it'll be an interesting change for him to be go back to being the number one linebacker on the field where he wasn't as successful as he was once he had Roquan Smith beside him.
Yeah, exactly.
Remind me, does Baltimore run a 3-4? Were they running a 3-4 last year or a
Yeah.
4-3?
They run the same system as the Steelers. They had they had the linebackers running off the edge with Houston and Clowney last year.
Okay, so it's a similar system to some degree, but yeah, he's not going to be playing beside Roquan Smith. It's going to be some combination of Cole Holcomb and Landon Roberts. Uh,
Peyton Wilson, I like the Peyton Wilson pick. That was really solid at the fourth round. So
it's a solid linebacking crew. Like if Patrick Queen plays to the level of that he did last season, I mean, Glover, you're on record of saying he's a top 10 linebacker in the league. Do you want to say that now that we're podcasting?
I do think that last year he was a top 10 linebacker in the league. Will he continue to be that on his own? We'll see. I don't know. We'll see. But last year he was amazing. He was so good, but it's just, is it role dependent? That's the big question for him. And we'll find out very quickly in Pittsburgh if he can handle it because they don't have a one. He's the one.
I will say he played pretty well off that Baltimore Ravens defensive line, which was just mauling offensive lines
Yeah.
across the league.
Oh,
And
yeah.
Pittsburgh's got a pretty good one themselves, right, Frosty? I mean, you already talked about TJ Watt and Cam Hayward. Even Alex Highsmith, I feel like, is probably one of the more underrated pass rushers in the league. Nick Herbig out of Wisconsin is somebody that I really liked last year and think there's some upside. Second round pick Keanu Benton. They picked up Larry Ogunjobi. What do you make of this front? Because this front seven has potential to be a really good one in the NFL.
This just looks like Pittsburgh Steelers defense. That's what it looks like. It looks like nobody's going to run the ball. It looks like nobody's going to get a ton of time in the pocket unless you're fully protected. So it's going to be teams are going to have to work to try and get through this front seven, I think. But after that, I think it gets a little bit more questionable. I love Joey Porter Jr. I think he's great. Outside of that, I don't love Dante Jackson as a two. Minka Fitzpatrick's kind of he's not the same player that he used to be. Deshaun Elliott, I'm not in love with at their other safety. The secondary is a lot more of a concern to me, but I do think their front seven is going to be dominant this year.
Yeah, I think that's all. It is just the same old Steelers defense. The front seven's gonna have to carry the load because behind it, it's not great. I think the biggest question for Minka Fitzpatrick is health. Only played 10 games last year, so can he stay healthy this season? Again, I love Joey Porter Jr. He's amazing, but yeah, Dante Jackson's not great. Cameron Sutton is suspended for the start of the year and wasn't great. Like Deshaun Elliott's solid. I liked Deshaun Elliott when he played in Baltimore, but he's just solid. Like he's nothing special. He's not going to be able to make tons of plays in coverage, and there's not much behind that. Like there really is not much in terms of secondary depth. So that's definitely the question mark. Is this D line is going to have to get to them fast because the coverage is going to get blown just as fast.
Yeah, a couple of depth guys I don't mind, and Miles Killebrew and Demonte KZ, I believe. We'll see, but yeah, like you need Joey Porter Jr. to. He's a good corner. He needs to be the one. He needs to be the top cornerback now. So you're hoping that he can take a jump. And if Minka stays healthy, then there's potential. There's real potential for the Steelers defense to be one of the best in the league. Let's move over to the Cleveland Browns now, where Cinderella run 11-6. Who would have seen that coming? I believe they used 4 quarterbacks last season, 5 in-game action, something like that, all to just get demolished, destroyed, bamboozled by the Houston Texans in the wild card round.
Couldn't help yourself.
I had to say that, right? Glover, Cleveland. I personally don't think an 11-6 replication is in the cards. had one of the best defenses last year, bar none. But what do you make of the Browns?
Yeah, I know you're lower on them. I think I'm a little higher on them than you are. I do like some of the things here. Obviously, the defense is amazing. The O-line is probably the best in football, or not the best in football. We started with the Lions a couple episodes ago, but it's one of the best in football. I mean, Joel Bitonio and Wyatt Teller is an amazing guard duo. Jedrick Wills is solid. Jack Conklin solid. So it's a really good. But there are some question marks for sure. I'm curious to see what we're going to get from Deshaun Watson. I thought he started off the year really slow, but he got to form, then got injured, and then it was toast. So I'm really not sure what we're going to get out of him. They also made sure they had quarterbacks for any situation. They got Jameis Winston, they signed Tyler Huntley, they still have DTR. They are ready. They are not letting that happen again. They are not gunning it back with Joe Flacco. Okay, maybe we'll get Matt Ryan off the desk this year, but yeah, they got quarterbacks. They made sure of that. The running game is going to be interesting without Nick Chubb for the first couple of weeks. Jerome Ford was a little underwhelming in the increased role. Like he really just didn't produce much, and they signed Kareem Hunt, and it was kind of meh. Deontay Foreman, though, I think he can take over. I think he might honestly be the one while Chubb is out, and then Naheem Hines is a good returner. Picked up Jerry Jeudy, solid pickup on offense to get some more receiver help. So there's definitely some pieces here. I think it falls in the back of what kind of Deshaun Watson you're going to get. The defense will be fine. The defense will be great. The O-line will be good. Nick Chubb will be amazing when he comes back. I have faith in that. He's bounced back from an injury like this before. I think he can do it. If there's a guy in the league that'll do it, it'll be Nick Chubb. He's already lifting stupid amounts of weights in the weight room, like 6 months after his injury. It was like 600 pounds or something stupid like that. Yeah. So he's a superhuman, and he had the same injury in college and bounced back and was just as good and continued that success in the NFL. So I think he can bounce back and be good. Maybe not best running back in the league good, but he can be a top 10 guy for sure. So I think Deshaun Watson is the big X factor here.
I I do agree. I think Deshaun Watson is the big X factor because if you get the Deshaun Watson that you got at the start of the year last year, this team is going nowhere. But if you get the Deshaun Watson that you got after he had acclimatized himself back into the NFL, after he had got some reps under his belt, and he started to look like Houston Texans Deshaun Watson a little bit. There was some signs, and then he got hurt. Is he going to be able to come back straight away into that form? Because when they don't have Nick Chubb, they're going to rely on him a lot to get them wins early on in the season, and they're probably going to have to rely on him a little bit more than they would have liked because they're gonna have to lighten Nick Chubb's workload. Realistically, now that's two absolutely major injuries, and I agree. He's if there's a person that I could bet money on to bounce back from an injury like that, it's Nick Chubb. Does he come back as the elite of elite? Probably not, but he's got the O line, so he's gonna have protection when he's running the ball. He's not gonna get stuffed a bunch. And you just have to hope that Deshaun Watson is going to be able to continue moving the ball down the field and be able to take a little bit of the stress off of Nick Chubb's job.
I'll justify it when we get to the standings predictions a little bit, but I think everything around Deshaun Watson is really good. I don't think you can complain. Like you could maybe want another receiver or two. Not the highest on Elijah Moore. We'll see what Jerry Jeudy does in a different system, but uh, other than that, like offensively, you couldn't ask for much more. Like they even brought in Jordan Akins, former Texan. They had a connection down there in Texas. I do think I'm just betting on. I just don't. I think it's gone, guys. I don't know if he's going to get back to that level. And I think based on what the Browns did this offseason, they have kind of admitted that to some degree without saying it. They went and got two other quarterbacks while still having DTR, who put together some good drives last year for the Browns, surprisingly late in the year to some degree.
DTR was great until the Ravens mauled him and just destroyed everything. He looked so promising and he played the Ravens and he just looked like a lost puppy out there. That game was hilarious to watch. I loved it.
Yeah, well, that's a rookie quarterback who I'm not
Yeah.
sure how many games he had under his belt up until that point, but that was a fantastic, the best defense in the league. So I just point is I think it does speak volumes that now they have him as the fourth guy after all that. So I think they are whether he can't stay healthy or it's just gone. Because to be fair, he's had a lot going on, right? Like we all know about what's been happening, and all of that stuff. Don't need to get into that, but and then compounded that with the injuries, it takes a toll on you for sure. But let's go to the defense where now we don't even need to spend too much time on it because it's pretty elite. Where do you want to start? You know what, I want to start off with this because I think this one man has potential to be one of the best players in the league. It's not who you guys think it is. And we already know about Myles Garrett. It's Myles Garrett is one of the best players in the league. Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah, Joker, JOK, he's an animal, guys. Keep an eye out for JOK because I think he can do everything. Like there's not one thing he can't do. He can rush the passer. He can coverage. His sideline to sideline mobility is wild. He has range for days. What do you guys think of JOK? Because I really do think he can take a step to be. I thought he was one of the best linebackers in the league last season. I think he can really compete for the top spot this season.
I think he's really good, but best player, one of the best players in the NFL. I think that's a little extreme. I don't think I can go that far. Like I like JOK, like them coming out of the draft, and the Browns did get a real steal. They had a really good draft that year with JOK falling due to the medical concerns, and they grabbed Greg Newsome in the first round that year. So he's really solid, and he's definitely outperformed his draft spot. I do like him a lot. I think he's definitely a top 10 linebacker. He's probably could work his way into the top five this year. I don't think that's that crazy to say. So I do like JOK a lot.
Yeah, he anchors this linebacking room. Like he bridges the gap from the Myles Garrett out to the Denzel Ward and the Greg Newsome. He does it perfectly. Like you said, Wiles, like he just does everything. You don't know what he's going to do, and you have to game plan for him to do everything because he's good at everything. It doesn't matter in man coverage, zone coverage, pass rushing. It he'll be an animal no matter what it is, and it helps because they might have. I don't think it's might. They have one of the best pass rushes in the league. Myles Garrett and Za'Darius Smith are going to be absolute animals. Like it's just this defense is just good. It's
Oh,
just really, really good.
yeah, and it's coached well. Like it's got depth. It's the defense has been the Browns' staple for years, which is why it was so confusing to me when they dished all that money out to Deshaun Watson. They could have lived with someone that wasn't getting $260 million guaranteed. So,
Baker
but and the
Mayfield.
defense is amazing. And JOK's the anchor of the linebacker room, but it got a lot better this year. It was just him last year. This year they added Jordan Hicks and they added Devin Bush, solid complementary pieces behind him. Like this defense was good, and I think it probably upgraded this offseason. Like it's a good team still.
Yeah, Jordan Hicks had over 100 tackles himself last year, and he's probably the third best backer in the group. The DBs are really good. I mean, Denzel Ward can take away half the field whenever he wants. Martin Emerson and Greg Newsome were really good, especially Greg Newsome, who kind of came like he was a first round pick, but didn't really see or predict him to take that sort of step. I thought he would be more of a nickel guy. He probably he was playing a little 2C, two quarterback, but his long-term home is probably in the nickel. Him and Emerson, I think, are really solid young guys. So I do have some questions on the D line. I'm not so sure how it's older, so I'm not sure how they'll hold up. Like, what do we make of a Zadarius Smith, a Davlin Tomlinson, Shelby Harris? Like these guys are getting up in age. So can Myles Garrett really like bridge the gap, so to speak, uh, for the rest of this D line and make everybody better because of he's going to be getting a double team every play?
I think so. I think Zadarius Smith is going to be the big one to do it. I think he will do it. And again, Dalvin Tomlinson's a good run stopper, so is Shelby Harris. And I'm curious if Siaki Ika will get playing time this year. I liked him coming out of the draft last season. Didn't really play at all this last year in 2023. So I want to see if he gets more snaps this year because he's a big defensive tackle. If the D line is a question mark, I think he can come in and play a role maybe. So there's some pieces here that I think will be solid.
Yeah, I don't know if they'll all stay at their level the entire season. If they get hurt, they're all getting up there. But there's depth there, like you just said, Glover, and I think that's going to be the key for this Browns D line this year is they're going to rotate people around Myles Garrett, and that's what's going to help them get constant pressure, a lot like we saw the Ravens do last year.
Yeah.
Well, Frosty, let's take a sit back here, and because it's time for the podcast where we're just gonna hand the reins over to Logan Glover here, let him go on the Baltimore Ravens because this Ravens team, I mean, we all know what they did last season. We're a top three team in football. Had the Chiefs for a little bit there until they did not have the Chiefs there. So Glover, take us through this Ravens team. You can go position by position. You can give us the entire outlook. We'll chip in at the end, but you know this team better than either of us. So go right ahead.
Well, first of all, thanks for giving me some flashbacks there and making me just like depressed before starting this. Like, oh my, I'm not even gonna bring up the AFC Championship game. That game we could have won, should have won. It's over. I hated it. We're gonna win this year. So the Ravens, like, I think a lot of people have been down in the offseason. They lost a lot of pieces and whatnot, and players moved around. Every team in the AFC North seemed to pick up one of our players, which is really annoying. But we lost a lot of players, but I think people are underrating how well Eric DaCosta, how good of a job he did at replacing those players and planning for their departure. The big one is Patrick Queen, but last year, third round pick Trent Simpson, he was drafted in this exact role, expected to play when Patrick Queen left because at that point they expected to just want to move on from Patrick Queen. They weren't expecting the breakout. The breakout happened. He left anyways. So Trent Simpson is there, and I think a guy like Roquan Smith can have a similar effect on a Trenton Simpson this year and develop him into a solid linebacker, and he can play well alongside him. He played in the last game of the season this year. When it was over, played against the Steelers, he was really good. He made a lot of really solid plays. He had a sack. He had 6 tackles. I think he had a fumble recovery in this game. He had tackles for loss. He was really, really solid, and I think he can blossom into a solid secondary linebacker behind Roquan Smith. A couple of the pieces we lost. You lose Geno Stone. That sucks. He's a great player, but we really weren't playing him at the end of the year because we had Kyle Hamilton, we had a healthy Marcus Williams, and we just signed Eddie Jackson recently. So no need for that. And again, is saying a lot of the pieces we lost, the only questionable pieces we lost were on the O-line. That's where it's going to be sketchy this year. That's going to be the biggest area of concern. Ronnie Stanley, I love the guy. He was so good, but he just hasn't been the same since his injury. He really has lost a step, and it's been tough. Tyler Linderbaum is one of the best centers in the NFL. He is phenomenal. I love Linderbaum. And then we picked Roger Rosengarten in the second round. I'm curious to see what he can do. He'll start at right tackle. Andrew Voorhees at left guard. We drafted him in expectation of replacing someone because he was spent all year with his torn ACL. He was on the injured list. I like him a lot as a 7th round pick. And this is going to be my guy for the year. I'm sure as we have this podcast throughout the year, I'm going to talk about him. Rashad Bateman. I think this is his year for a breakout. I've got his jersey up there. Wait, right there. There it is. That works. I think it's his year. I really do. He's finally fully healthy. He's practicing well. He's creating that bond with Lamar. I think he's got the talent. He's always had the speed and the explosiveness. He just has been injury prone. I think he's going to get properly used this year now that he's fully healthy. But even then, I think the Ravens receiver room is always questioned. Aguilar was a solid 3 last year. I like the Devontae Walker pick. I like Tylan Wallace as a player. So really, like, everyone likes to just look at all the players we lost, but really there's not a lot of holes besides the O-line, which the O-line wasn't great last year, and Lamar Jackson can make it work. Lamar Jackson almost doesn't need an O-line. He can just run out of it. And I think it'll be good enough. It won't be elite. It won't be amazing. The O-line will be good enough to let other players develop. I think Derrick Henry, I'm not holding out hope that he's going to be the Derrick Henry that bullied the Ravens in the divisional round, but I think he can be solid. I mean, he was playing with a pretty crappy O-line in Tennessee. It is going to be better here in Baltimore. The system, he's not going to be the headline. That's the big thing for Derrick Henry. I'm curious how he'll perform now that the defense isn't selling out to stop Derrick Henry. Because if they sell it to stop Derrick Henry, Lamar Jackson's going to burn him. They're going to get torched. So That'll be interesting. I think Zay Flowers is gonna have another. I think he's gonna take another jump. I thought he was really solid last year. I thought he was the best rookie receiver. I know, Wiles, you disagree with that, but I thought he was the best rookie receiver last year. He was really, really good. And he's going to be playing with a chip on his shoulder. And I hate it because it was an annoying play and it should have just been a touchdown. Should have even been in that situation because of a dumb penalty that shouldn't have been called. But he fumbled on the goal line. And I'm getting off track because that game just pisses me off so much. If I can't stand that game, just thinking about it makes me angry. But Zay Flowers will play with a chip on his shoulder, and I think he'll be good. Again, I love Justin Madubuike. I can go on for days. I love this team. I think the team is still going to be one of the best in the NFL this year. Lamar Jackson can have another MVP season. The defense is still elite. Kyle Hamilton depoy, it's coming. There we go. That's my take on the Ravens. Let's see what you guys think of this team. I know you don't like a lot of the losses, but I think they were filled well.
Frosty?
The majority of the things you said, I agree with. I think Zay Flowers being the best rookie receiver is questionable. There's a few opinions on here about that, but I see where you're coming from with the Trenton Simpson draft pick, with the Andrew Voorhees draft pick. They have done a good job they filled holes before they were holes.
Yeah.
They drafted guys because they knew this was going to happen. Realistically, we're never going to be able to afford to sign all of the guys that were going to leave in the first place. I don't know about Depoy, but Kyle Hamilton is one of the best defensive players in football, period. I think he was the best player in that draft class. He is absolutely unbelievable. And he plays like 7 different positions. He plays everywhere. I think the only place he didn't line up last year was D tackle.
Probably. I don't know if you guys have seen the play, but it was in the Niners game where Kyle Hamilton, he got stuffed he was rushing the passer. He was coming off on a safety blitz. He got knocked down. He got pushed down. He was held down. Purdy's scrambling. He throws the ball. Hamilton gets up, tracks the ball back, picks it off. It's just, this guy is just a motor. He just doesn't stop no matter what. It's amazing to watch.
Yeah, I think there's a lot less questions on the defensive side of the ball for me. One question that I have is Mark Andrews going to be the Mark Andrews that we're used to? I don't think it's the biggest of deal because you and I, Logan, are both very high on Isaiah Likely. I love Isaiah Likely.
Yeah.
I think he's a great tight end. And even if Mark Andrews takes a step back after the injury, you could still have a top 10 tight end in Isaiah Likely, realistically.
Yeah.
There's outside of the O-line, I'm tired of buying into the Rashad Bateman hype, to be completely honest. I've done it the last 3 years. I'm over it. I'm done with it. I'm not doing it until he shows me now.
It's gonna happen this year. This is it. This is it.
I've heard that that's the Ravens fan talk. I've heard that the last 3 years in a row now that he was supposed to be he was going to be really good. He was going to be an impact guy. It just hasn't happened yet. I would love to see more out of him.
I will say me and Glover have had this conversation off air quite a few times about Rashad Bateman. It's just the fact that if there was a true number one beside him, I think Bateman would flourish. It's just that there's not, and there's not one on this team right now.
I think Zay can be that guy. I think Zay can be the number one. I think he can be the guy that takes some of the load off of Rashad Bateman, for sure. And I think the big thing this year is Bateman's coming into the year healthy. He's come into the past 3 seasons with injury problems. This year he's practicing healthy in July. So that'll be interesting to see if that helps him.
We'll see if it holds up. Regardless, I think there's questions in the receiver room as well. I mean, obviously you're going to have a bit of tinted glasses on the younger guys who are there. We'll see. I don't think there's a number one target on this team, frankly, and I think that's fair. He's not a true number one guy. As a number one target.
Martin's been the number one guy though. This Ravens team has never had a number one guy, or never had a number one receiver. They've had a number one tight end. Mark Andrews has always been the leading target for this team.
And
And
now
last
he's
year they
starting
showed,
to slow down, and
yeah,
there's injury concerns
but
for
last
sure.
year they showed they could do it without him. Isaiah Likely showed it. Like I think Mark Andrews is their number one guy.
I like Isaiah Likely too. I'm talking about there's no true number one guy, and
I,
I think that's fair. I think that's
I
fair
think Mark Andrews is the number one guy. He's the third best head in the NFL. Am I wrong? Like he still is the until we see him slow down. 'Cause he didn't slow down last year. He just got hurt. He was amazing till he got hurt.
I
Like
mean, I still think he's top five. I think Sam Laporte is the third best tight end in football now, though.
I'm still gonna take Andrews because, well, mainly because he's a much better blocker than Laporte is. Andrews
Yeah,
is an amazing blocker. That's the big reason why I think he's still like I'm not saying it's a landslide, but he's definitely still an elite tight end and can be a number one option in a receiving in a team that is a run heavy team, especially. Like he's not dependent. Like they don't need to depend on the pass game.
for sure. And that's I didn't say they couldn't get away with it. I'm just saying that there isn't uh a typical number one guy on the roster like you would see now. When you get to the backfield and what's there, man, oh man, like the amount of creativity that can be done with, geez, with oh my god, like it is legitimately crazy to think about a play action with Derrick Henry and Lamar Jackson, and you have Pat Ricard out there as well. So we'll
Project Pat, baby. Oh,
we'll see what happens even in the two back sets that they like to run with. I know Keaton Mitchell you have been talking about, so
he demon.
we'll see. I think there's a lot more pressure on the O line than you would like to admit. Now, obviously, they can work around it, but at some point, like we saw in the playoffs, you can work around not having a true number one guy. You can work around some O line troubles until you're facing the best of the best. So we'll see what Rosengarten can do. I don't love starting a second round tackle.
I
Uh,
do.
we'll see what Voorhees looks like. But yeah, I mean, no need to touch on Linderbaum or Stanley. I feel like a lot of the talk here has been on the offense because we don't even need to discuss the defense. I mean, Glover, you mentioned the names that are going to be there. So there's you would like to see Trenton Simpson play well if he can. Like that's probably the only place where you're really looking at like questions like Stevens and some combination of TJ Tampa or Washington should fill some of the DB holes that are there now. So it's solid all around.
The only place that will be questionable, I think there's potential for it to not be a question right out of the gate, is going to be edge because we lost to Devion Clowney last year, who was really solid. I hope Kyle Van Noy can repeat the performance he had last year, but he was amazing last year and he's getting up there in age. But I'm still big on Odafe and David Ojabo. There's potential there. So we'll see if that's the place that I'm most concerned with on the defense. But I think a lot of the edge pressure can be made up with by just the amount of BK being just a monster.
Yeah, fair enough. Fair enough. All right. Well, let's go to the standings prediction. This is usually where this is probably the most fun part of the podcast here.
yeah.
So Glover will give your vocal cords a break. Frosty, take us through what you have.
All right. The last place team in this division, I have the Pittsburgh Steelers. Finally going under 500. I have them at 8-9, 2-4 in the division. And this is less attributed to the fact that I don't think this Steelers team is a team that should lose more games than they win. I just think they play in a really, really tough division with a lot of teams that are in the upper echelon of teams in this league. It's going to be tough. And if there's even like one game where they're supposed to win and they don't win, that's it. Because then they're going to have to come back and they're going to have to beat Baltimore in Baltimore. They're going to have to beat Cincinnati. Like it's going to be tough. And I know they can beat Baltimore. It's division games, anything can happen. But
No, they continually beat Baltimore.
They
They'll take one
they
off
do.
Baltimore regardless.
I really
Yeah.
hate it, but they've been beating our ass the last 3 years. It's been really
Oh
annoying.
yeah. Oh, I do have one of the games that they win. I do have them winning at home against Baltimore.
So do
And
I.
it's just I don't know. It's gonna be it's gonna be a tough season for the Steelers to try and manufacture something where they can manage to get themselves back to the playoffs again. Like I don't know about the Russ experiment that's gonna happen here. Actually, I lied. I actually have Baltimore sweeping them. I have Baltimore taking both.
Even I don't have that. Wow.
Um,
Okay.
I it's just a tough division. Um, Third place I have Cleveland Browns also at 8 and 9. I just don't trust Deshaun Watson anymore. It's tough to put a lot of stock into the guy after what he looked like when he came out of the gates last season. I love Nick Chubb. I think if there's a guy that's like we said, if there's a guy that's gonna come back from that injury, it'll be Nick Chubb. But there's even a limit for him. And especially with the lowered workload that he's going to have, I just don't trust Deshaun Watson to be able to pick up the slack that he's going to need to in order to be able to keep this team afloat in this division. I have them 8 and 9, finishing under 500 too. And then we get into the playoff teams, the two playoff teams in this one. I have the Cincinnati Bengals at 11 and 6, getting the 6th seed. I'm banking on a fully healthy Joe Burrow season. That's pretty much what it's going to come down to me for this Bengals team. I have them going 3-3 in the division just because this is it's just tough. It's tough to win division games in the first place, let alone in this division, especially on the road. And I think they'll have some troubles with it. I have them dropping a game to the Giants in week 6. I there's some games here that just feel like trap games, and you almost have to game plan for Joe Burrow missing at least one game, because at this point you really can't rely on him to have a full season. I think 11 and 6 is fair for them. They were 9 and 8 last year without him. I think if he plays at least close to at least 15 games this year, 11 wins is in the realm of possibilities. And then first in the division, the 2 seed in the AFC, Baltimore. I have them at 13-4, 5-1 in the division. We just rambled about them for so long. I don't need to reiterate every stat that we just made. I will say I have them losing to the Cowboys in week 3. I do have them. I have them going 6-4 against winning teams, 4-4 against teams that are in playoff teams. They're I think they're going to win the games that they should win. I don't think Baltimore is going to drop too many games, and the start to their schedule is a tough one. Their first 5 games, with the exception of week 2, are they're tough games to start off the year. But after that, outside of their division games, I don't really see many teams that give them very much trouble.
Yeah, I think I just want to the tough schedule. The benefit is the tough schedule being at the start of the year. The Ravens always come out guns a-blazing and then have a really odd second half of the year or injuries catch up to them. So the fact that this tough games at the start of the year, I am so thankful for.
Also, just keep
Yeah,
going, Glover. What do you got?
So I'll start at the bottom, and this is the one place where my Steelers hate always seems to come back and make it worse than it needs to be. But I've got the Steelers, I've got them at 6-11, and it seems really low. Like it really does. And I do this to myself every year. The big thing I want to go to is last year's schedule. They were 10-7. They beat the Bengals twice. Both games were with Jake Browning. They beat the Ravens in week 18 with nobody playing. Realistically, they should not have been above 500 last year. They got 3 wins handed to them. They get lucky like that. They get those games that you don't expect. Like they lost the Patriots and the Cardinals last year in back-to-back weeks and finished with a 10-7 record. I don't expect it to happen this year. I'm just assuming that the offense is going to struggle as usual, and the defense is going to just lose its legs by the end of the year. Like that's the big thing. I think I do have them. I'm like you. I do have them taking the game against the Ravens at home because they do always beat us. But I have the Ravens finally getting their get back in week 16 and beating the Steelers. But like they end the year with a gauntlet from week 11 down to the week 18. Baltimore, Cleveland, Cincinnati, Cleveland again, Philly, Baltimore again, Kansas City, Cincinnati again. That is unreal. That is unbelievably hard. That's a crazy stretch of schedule. So that's going to be tough for them. And again, I don't trust Russ. I think he's just past it. That's really I just don't have a lot of faith in this team. But I also never have faith in this team. So that's just where I'm at. At third place, I also have the Cleveland Browns, but I have them at 10-7, just missing out on the playoffs. 3-3 in the division. I said it before. I have a little bit more faith in Deshaun Watson than you guys seem to. I do have them. I think I have them splitting against both the Ravens and the Bengals and sweeping the Steelers in the division. Or no, splitting. Actually, they haven't splitting against all three teams. They split against everyone in the division. They don't have a crazy tough schedule. Like a lot of their tougher games, like they play the Cowboys and Jags to start off the year. That's not easy. They do have the Eagles, and they have the Chiefs, but the Chiefs are also regular season Chiefs. What are you going to get? I actually have them pulling off the upset against the Chiefs. This defense is amazing. I think if you like Joe Flacco didn't have to be great last year. If you can put up Joe Flacco numbers as Deshaun Watson, I think this defense can take you to the playoffs, take you to an above 500 record in this case at 10-7. Then next, I also have the Bengals in third. I have them at 12-5, 4-2 in the division. Funnily enough, they actually have the best in division record for me in this division at 4-2. I think they get a healthy Joe Burrow. I would assume like if you get a healthy Joe Burrow, this is what you get. If you don't get a healthy Joe Burrow, who knows? I have them dominating against losing record teams, 10-0 against teams with losing record, and then just 2-5 against winning record teams. But the Bengals typically beat the teams they're supposed to beat, and they beat them pretty good. Um, and luckily enough, I was trying at this when I was making this, I was trying to account for the Bengals' slow starts because they always start out 1-2, 1-3, and everyone's going, "Oh my God, what's going on with the Bengals?" But there's no way they should start out with that kind of record this year. They open with the Patriots, the Chiefs, which I have them losing, the Commanders, and then the Panthers. If they come out of those four games with a losing record, then maybe something is wrong. I would this would be the time I'd agree to hit the panic button because that is sketchy if you can't manage to scrape away 3 wins out of that. So I've got them at 12-5 in second place, and I have shocker. I have the Ravens winning the division, 13-4, same record as you, Frosty. I actually have them going 3-3 in the division though. I think I have them splitting against everyone. They win they win all their divisional games at home and lose them all on the road is sort of the way I have it going. And it's simply just they start the season 4-0, and I think they might fall asleep at the wheel against the Bengals in week 5. The Browns typically take a game from us. Their defense is really good. I think their defense might have the best system in place to shut down a guy like Lamar Jackson with Myles Garrett along with elite cornerbacks. And each layer of their defense has a guy who can shut down the Ravens offense. And I said it, the Steelers always at least take a game. They always at least take a game. And it's so annoying because I guarantee you week 11 or week 16, Baltimore versus Pittsburgh, it'll be the sloppiest, messiest, most disgusting game of football you've ever watched in your life. And it's going to be painful. The Ravens always just lay an egg one of those games. The offense dies, the defense dies. Everyone just stops playing football. And it's annoying. It's really annoying. So I hope it doesn't happen this year, but I'm not betting on it not happening. So Ravens, second seed in the AFC, just like you, Frosty, 13-4. And I do have them going on a deep playoff run, shocker.
Well, there we go. There we go. Man, you guys just always do such a good job of recapping and laying out what you guys have. So I like to, recap it a little bit and then throw a splash of my opinion on it. I got the Browns in last in the division, 7-10. Decently low on Cleveland. Man, I have just so many questions at quarterback. I feel like, yeah, Glover, you mentioned if Deshaun Watson can give what Joe Flacco gave, uh, they're just different quarterbacks, and Cleveland kind of needs what Joe Flacco brought, which was just accuracy, smart decisions, and Flacco was fitting it into some tight windows with that accuracy.
Oh,
So
yeah.
I'm not sure if that's not really Deshaun Watson's game, so to speak. So we'll see what happens. You could easily finish better than 7-10 just because of how good that defense is. I just think, and this this is a motto for the whole division because I feel like my records are kind of lower than you guys. I just think they're going to eat at each other, and I think this is something the AFC North does every year is eat at each other. So if the Browns get a couple more wins and another team doesn't, I do think there's potential for them to be 9-8. I don't see them getting double-digit wins like Glover has them at 10-7, though. I think Frosty at 8-9 or even that 9-8 range is surely doable for Cleveland. Before we get into this, I wanted to ask you this before we started the standings predictions, and I messed up. So, Frosty, you mentioned you had two of these teams making the playoffs, right?
Yeah.
Glover, how many? Do you have two as well?
Two. Yep, same two.
So yeah, three teams made the playoffs last year. So it's going to be interesting to see if the line was 2.5. You guys would both take the under.
Yeah.
I take the under. I don't know if I take it confidently, but I would take the under.
All right. I should have asked that at the start. Anyways, Steelers, I got them at 8-9. I got them breaking it, just like Frosty has exactly at 8-9. It's just they're just so mid, and it's every year they're just mid. We'll see if Russ in the quarterback situation can figure it itself out. They need steps on the O line, however, and the receiver room is just filled with 3 to 4 type of guys. So outside of George Pickens, who I'm not sure if he could be a number one himself. So 8-9 for Pittsburgh. Maybe Mike Tomlin can cook something up. Arthur Smith, maybe, maybe not like what Glover thinks, but I got the Bengals at 9-8, the lowest out of you two. You guys were saying it. How can you bet on Joe Burrow right now? I mean, realistically, he's played 10 games twice in his career, and he's played 16 games twice in his career. So you can relatively expect to be somewhere around those numbers, right? I just think if he's going to be playing around 10, 11 games, I don't see them making double-digit wins. It could easily happen if, and now you guys both stated, yeah, if Burrow's healthy, they're going to have double-digit wins, and I completely agree. Just kind of more prediction on my part saying that he's going to maybe even miss 4 to 5 games with an ankle tweak or a shoulder thing. I don't know, right? I think that's easily in the cards for someone like Burrow. The Ravens, I'm not sure if this has happened. We all have the same record, 13-4. I don't think that's happened yet.
Wow.
So,
Well, it's just we're all agreeing on how good the Ravens are. I mean, are you really that surprised?
I mean, what did you think you were going to get an argument out of me of how good Baltimore was? Like, what did you think my record was going to be for them?
I actually don't know. I didn't think you had that many teams this high though. Like at 13, like are they still your 2 seed? Yeah.
They're the second best team in the NFL at 13-4 for
Yeah.
me. So, and honestly, could probably be the best. Well, I don't want to spoil the Kansas City Chiefs, but I feel like everybody mocks them to have a higher record, and I did in this one. But typically they're probably going to come in at 11 or 12 wins. So
It's just so hard to go, yeah, the Chiefs are gonna lose this random game in the middle of
it's
November.
hard.
A crappy team, but they do it every year. So
It's just because they generally reserve themselves, right? Like I think Travis Kelce himself, like, was close to half of his production that he accumulated in the playoffs in the entire regular season. So it's clearly like they don't turn on the Jets until they need to. So that it's going to be a fun division. Obviously, the AFC North always has been, especially with the Cleveland bounce back in the recent years. It's really made this division fun. I think there's something to say though. Like they're going to eat at each other all year, and all of these teams have hard stretches. I mean, whoever you laid out the Steelers, was it the Steelers stretch
yeah,
that
he was the end of
that
the year.
so that's a tough one. And like, yeah, because they have those division games. They play, I think they play a couple of the teams in the division twice during that stretch. So I think they're going to eat at each other. I think they're all were good enough last year to where they're not going to have cakewalk of schedules. So I think it's easy. I think you could see a world where three of these teams, like I have them, under double-digit wins, especially in the Browns case for 7-10. I didn't even bring it up. Like Nick Chubb, we'll see how long he's out for. I don't feel confident that they can supplement the run game if Watson doesn't have it going. Great O line, so I would like to see Jedrick Wills stay healthy. That would be really cool. But yeah, I mean, I think we've gone enough about this division, right, fellas? I mean, I think we all agree that is there a better division of football?
No. I hate it. It's one of the funniest things is arguing your division is the best in football because it sucks. You play
Yeah,
these teams 6 times a year. I hate it. Like this division is a bloodbath every year, and these games always are a toss up. Like you can never bet on any of these teams to beat any of these teams in any given week. It's messy football in the AFC North.
I think
Yeah,
some.
it's messy, but it's entertaining because all these teams are so close.
It's entertaining if you're not a fan of one of these teams because watching messy football when your team can't figure out how to throw the football more than 5 yards is really annoying.
Oh, I'm aware. Don't
Yeah.
you worry.
Yeah, I was aware up until last season. Yeah, I mean, something that would be really interesting to go look at. I might just do it as a fun little experiment. Who has the best record in the division, and does that team have the best record? Uh, like, do they have the best division? Oh, well, what I'm trying to say is, who has the best win-loss record within the division against division teams throughout the year, and does that team finish as the top team in the division? And I think that would relatively be pretty consistent because it's a dog eat dog world in this AFC North. So
Although it is, funnily enough, this is the one division I have where the team that has the best record in division doesn't actually win the division with the Bengals at 4-2. Like it's the only division in the entire NFL I did this year. I don't really know why, but it just had that's the way the cards fell.
I think it could go different ways too, because they're so close. It's just going to depend on how different things break, right, Frosty? Like, uh, is Deshaun Watson? I mean, a lot of questions at the quarterback for basically everybody but Baltimore, right? Like, is Joe Burrow going to stay healthy? Is Deshaun Watson going to stay healthy? How's he going to look? How's Russell Wilson / Justin Fields going to look? So, we could see this going very different ways, I feel.
Yeah, absolutely. Like this, like there's a ton of question marks on all of these teams, but they're all very good teams at the same time. So the quarterback is the hardest spot for there to be question marks, and that just so happens to be for to me three of these four teams. That's their biggest question mark, and it's either going to propel them forward and above the rest of the division, or it's going to sink them.
I think that's a good way to end it, Frosty. All right. Well, Glover, any final thoughts, or you just want to keep prancing around on the Ravens wagon here?
Super Bowl is coming to Baltimore. Honestly, I just want to watch Lamar Jackson's Super Bowl game, and I just want to have the Chiefs not rob it of us. That's all I ask.
You're getting greedy, man. Some team, there's Panthers fans watching this. There could be other teams watching this saying, "We just want to win games." You're talking about, "I just want to watch a Super Bowl."
You know what my answer to that is? Cheer for a better team, man. Like
Game, game.
that's the
Yeah,
way.
we got a Cowboys fan right here. Like, yeah,
Yeah,
that's
it's okay.
insensitive. Yeah, I think you got to take a step back and realize where you're
Yeah.
at. Like, you're
Hey,
blessed right now. You're up.
I want more. I'm greedy.
Yeah. Anyways, Glover's greedy. Frosty disagrees. That's all for the Backfield Buzz. Don't forget to like and subscribe. If you enjoyed us talking about these teams, keep an eye out for the AFC East. That's coming up next. Then I think we'll do the South guys. Then I think we'll do the AFC West. Then we're going to do some fantasy content. Hopefully, we can get that all in before the season begins. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe and keep it buzzing.